Fortnite is finally fixing Storm Surge trading. They are now completely reworking how Storm Surge works, and a lot of people are really concerned about this, and a lot of people are really confused. I'm going to explain how the new Storm Surge works, whether I think it's going to be good for the game, and how I would suggest fixing Storm Surge if I worked at Epic Games. I also want to talk about our new duos. Mongrel and Marco have officially split up. Are we finally going to see Mr. Savage with a new duo? We also had some really big teams missing out on finals this week on EU. No Venocino, no Vanya Swizzy, no Pablo Fedoxy. We are missing some of the biggest teams on EU, and I want to talk about why this is and what it means. This is a crazy video. There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. Let's talk about Storm Surge. Now, I'm not kidding. This is potentially one of, if not the biggest changes Fortnite has ever made to competitive. Changing how Storm Surge works will impact the game more than basically anything else they can possibly do. So this is a huge deal. But I want to start off by saying I'm happy Fortnite is trying to fix it. Surge trading is terrible for the game. We all hate it. It has become extremely boring, terrible. It promotes teaming. It is just not good for the game. So I like that Fortnite is trying to fix it. I'm fully on board with that. While I don't think this new Storm Surge is going to be particularly good for the game, I'm still glad they're testing it. But I want to go through exactly how the new Storm Surge works and give my thoughts on why I don't think it's going to be necessarily good for the game. So let's see. So they tweeted out, we're testing an update to Storm Surge. It will change from total damage dealt to net damage. Damage dealt minus damage taken in the performance eval cups from October 2nd. So firstly, fantastic. We're using the eval cups to actually evaluate a big change. So it's not affecting the divisional cups this week. It's not affecting the solo cash cups. It's only affecting the eval cups. So right now, I think Fortnite is cooking. I'm very, very happy with them addressing Storm Surge. I'm happy with them doing the eval cup. But how does this new Storm Surge actually work? They're going to explain in the tweet, for clarification, the only damage that counts is damage dealt / taken between players who aren't downed. Players' net damage will count through the entire game, even after being eliminated or rebooted. So before I explain the new Surge, let's explain the old Surge, how it currently works. So again, as you deal damage throughout the game, there is a threshold. All of your damage is being tracked, and if there's too many players alive at a certain zone, whoever's done the least amount of damage starts getting hit by Storm Surge. The problem is that only counts for damage done. It doesn't matter how much you take. And that's where trading comes in. If you build up a giant tower and your friend builds up a giant tower, you deal 2,000 damage to each other. Even though you've dealt 2,000 damage and taken 2,000, you're still 2,000 above, because all that matters is you've done damage. So if you have extra meds that you can pop, it doesn't matter. That's the problem with trading, right? So then this makes sense, right? It's damage done minus damage taken. So if you deal 2,000 damage, but you take 2,000 damage, you're still back to 0. Whereas a team that's done 100 damage, but taken 0, they're up 100. They're doing better than you. And that sounds like it would make sense. That sounds like it would work. My issue is I know how pros are going to abuse this at the top level. Again, this is all theoretical. We have to wait until we see the eval cup play out. But my concern, and what the concern a lot of pros have, is if your middle map, let's say you're OXR base, and you deal 200 damage, you hit a few AR tags on a team that's across the map, what stops you from just boxing up for the entire rest of the game? As long as you get Storm, you can just sit there and just wait, and then you just stare at your walls. There's no reason to deal damage or fight anymore. And alternatively, let's say you drop edge map, right? You drop an edge map POI, you're contested, which is even worse, right? You get down, they get a gun, you get a gun, you pop some minis, you deal 100 damage to them, they deal 50 damage to you, and you take them down. You're only 50 up in damage, and now you're gonna have to rotate across the entire map. So while you're rotating, you're gonna get hit by, let's say, 4 or 5 AR shots. You're now lost 150 damage. So your 50 positive has now gone to 100 negative. Then you get into zone and everyone's boxed up because they already have their surge. See what I mean? There's just no incentive to actually want to take fights anymore. Realistically, fighting is actually even more risky now than before, because you can win a fight and actually take more damage than what you dealt. If you get into a box fight with a team, you open up the fight, you hit them for 100, they hit you for 150, you drop back, you fully pop meds, you take them down, they deal a bit of damage back, and you end up winning the fight, but you might go equal on damage or maybe even negative, but you won the fight. That's going to be a problem. And then even worse, once you've now won that fight, you're going to try to rotate into zone, and you're going to get tagged for 2 or 3 more AR shots because you're trying to get into zone because you took a fight, and now you're even more below. Whereas the team that just dealt 100 damage at the start of the game and just boxed up in metal, they're still 100 up. Like, they're still fine. So I know what people are saying as well, like, oh, but if you deal 1,000 damage and only take 200, you're 800 above. So you're doing even better than those other teams. And that makes sense. But in my understanding, if for teams to have done that consistently, it means they've killed so many other teams that Surge won't even be an issue. So that team that got 100 damage and just stayed in the middle of the map, they're still going to be up. They're still going to be fine. Does that make sense? The only way I think that teams can do a lot of damage and still not be above whatever the threshold is if a bunch of people have died. And at that point, there'll be no Surge. So I'm only concerned that this, while getting rid of trading, which is awesome, is going to make teams fight even less. It also means while you're fighting, you're going to play so much safer. Everyone's going to be sitting in boxes, taking perfect right-hand peeks. You're going to be a lot more scared to jump in and take down a player, because if you jump in and you 200 pump them, but they hit you for 180, you're only 20 damage up. And maybe you needed 150 damage in that fight to be above. So the logic that, oh, this is going to make teams fight because, you know, when they're below, they're going to key those teams in the metal boxes. Yeah, they could key those teams in the metal boxes, but they have everything to lose. They're taking the fight already below. They need to flawlessly win this fight. They have to 200-0 both the opponents without taking any damage back, or they might win the fight and still be below. These are the concerns that I have. It just really rewards middle map teams, and it really rewards teams playing super passive and not taking any fights. So as bored as I am watching people Surge trade, and as boring as it might be for you guys playing in Surge trading, this isn't going to be that much better in my opinion. But again, I need to state, I love the fact that Epic is trying to fix it. I love that they're coming up with solutions, and I could be completely wrong. I'm thinking about all this theoretically. I've talked about it on my stream for about 3 hours now. I got a bunch of pros involved in the discussion. It seems to be most people are a little bit worried with this change, but we could all be wrong at the end of the day. Now, the other concern we have is Fortnite's made the wording a little bit confusing. So at the start of the tweet, they say it'll change from total damage dealt to net damage. Damage dealt minus damage taken. Is that going to include storm damage? Like if you take storm damage and that decreases, that's going to make it even worse for players on edge map or players trying to rotate. But they then said for clarification, the only damage that counts is damage dealt taken between players who aren't downed. And that makes sense. Oh, Aussie, that means storm damage doesn't count. But does that mean once you've downed an opponent, the damage that was done to them doesn't count anymore? Obviously not. Like that would be insane. But again, Fortnite's wording is always a little bit confusing. And I know I'm being a bit difficult here. I understand that. I'm looking into this way too much. But there's been times in the past where I've talked about these kind of updates and I say, oh, but that's not what Fortnite meant, obviously. And it is. So I feel like Fortnite probably needed to give us a little bit more information. But again, that's why they're running tournaments. That's why we have the tournament. I am a little bit concerned as well that this is just not going to work from a coding standpoint. Like, there's a lot of bugs in Fortnite. There's a lot of bugs in Fortnite, especially right now. Crash pads still don't work. Edit bug still is a thing. Controller bug is still a thing. If Fortnite accidentally messes up how this is coded, and let's say your team dies and then all of a sudden your teammate goes down and then you lose their surge or you take fall damage, what happens if you take fall damage? Is that going to count? What if someone chops you and take fall damage? Do they get the damage or do you lose the damage? See what I mean? There's a lot of things here we are going to need clarification on, but I wasn't even going to make this video until after the Eval Cup, but I've had so many people DMing me, Aussie, I'm confused. How does it work? I don't get it. Is it good for the game? Is it bad? Everyone's panicking, so I wanted to at least explain my thoughts and some of my concerns to try to kind of, start the conversation. But all of this will be answered after the Evaluation Cup. And again, I don't like just being negative and talking about how I don't think this is going to work without some kind of a solution. And there are other solutions people have proposed for fixing Storm Surge. There's a few different solutions I think could have been better than this, but they might have their own issues as well. One suggestion a lot of teams have given is the fact that you can have capped amount of surge per team. So you can only do 200 damage to one team, for example, before you stop getting surge on them. So you can't keep trading with them. You have to look for another team to play aggressive on. And I think that could be quite good. I think that's actually possibly one of the best options, but that would be very confusing for new players getting into the game. It'd be very confusing for people watching the game. But honestly, I feel like Storm Surge as a mechanic is already quite confusing for the average person trying to watch the game. I think when a grand finals or a really big tournament is on, honestly, half the people watching probably don't even actually get how Storm Surge works. They just understand that teams have to deal damage to stay above it. So it means you have to be active and be aggressive. You can't sit there and do nothing, which is also why this new Storm Surge has me a bit concerned because, again, it rewards doing nothing. It is worth mentioning as well, when we're talking about all these options to fix Storm Surge, yes, we want teams to be more aggressive and we want to reward fighting, but I think a lot of people also still do want the games to be stacked. Like, we could fix Storm Surge right now by making it that elims are worth 500 points. So everyone's just fighting each other constantly. No one really cares about getting to endgame, but that really wouldn't be Fortnite competitive as well. So when I'm talking about these solutions, I'm trying to come up with ways that would fix Storm Surge, where it would make it so that it rewards teams that are being aggressive, it rewards you for being active, it makes you actually do things around the map, but it doesn't just lead to a 10-man endgame where it feels like a pub. So we'll see. So on top of having cap surge per team, some people have also suggested having cap surge per zone. So yeah, if you do 2,000 damage in the first zone because you're trading, that doesn't mean anything because next zone you got to do a bit of damage, and the zone after and the zone after that, it keeps resetting, which yes, that could be kind of cool, but again, it causes that issue of it's going to create a lot of aggression, almost too much aggression, where teams are going to be forced to fight each other constantly. Some people have suggested you should only get Storm Surge on eliminations and knocks, but again, that means for 50 teams if there's 50 teams, duos, let's say 50 players, if you got 50 players to then get 50 elims to stay above, it means you already halved the lobby, right? If the only way you get Storm Surge is by killing someone, then half the lobby has to kill the other half, and then the game is going to be dead at that point. The other option is surge multipliers. Some people have talked about how shotguns or close range weapons should give more surge than long range weapons, which could also again be a factor, but that could be quite confusing. And I think the main reason why Fortnite's not doing a lot of these other suggestions is because of coding. I feel like it would actually be very difficult to track all of this and make it work properly without bugs and glitches. And I think that is one of the main reasons why Fortnite's gone with the damage dealt minus damage taken option, because it's a lot simpler to explain, it's a lot simpler to understand, and it seems like it's a lot simpler to actually implement into the game properly. But my biggest issue again is it's not going to make the game play out better. And to be honest, 99% of you who play the game or even watch it to that extent don't really get affected by Surge that much because it's only really in the best lobbies. But that's what I'm concerned about. All of this competitive stuff, it all builds up to the big tournaments, the grand finals, the global championships. And Storm Surge completely changes how pros play the game and how they look at the game. And if the game's going to turn into people just being rewarded for doing nothing, just sitting in their box all game, I don't think that's a good change. But again, for the 5th time in this video, I have to say it, I'm happy they're trying it, and I will be so happy if I'm wrong. There is a good chance I will be wrong. I'm just giving my initial thoughts based on what we've read, but Fortnite probably needs to give us a bit more information on exactly how it's going to work. Another big change, the minigun has been vaulted from competitive. It has been removed. Now, I didn't mind the minigun again because it added a little bit of extra utility to the game. There's not really much mobility in the game right now. There's not really many items to carry that change up the loot pool that much. The minigun was a cool item. If you carried it, mean you had to give up your assault rifle or double shotgun, you had to give up something else, but I fully understand that getting sprayed down with a minigun in endgame and just getting lobby focused is frustrating. I definitely get that. So I was fine with the minigun in the game. It seems like most people are happy with this change though, so I guess we'll see going forward, but no more minigun, and it also got removed in ranked. Because I want to get this video out earlier explaining the Storm Surge changes, because a lot of you guys have been asking, NA hasn't happened yet, but we did just have the EU Div Cups, and man, we are missing a lot of big teams. We have some huge teams not making the finals. So the list of the biggest teams that didn't make it through: no Frodoxy and Pablo, no Chino Veno, no Pixie Walks, no Vico Eyedrop, no Swizzy Vanya, no Rezon Vidil, and no Trulex Chicho. Like, that is an insanely stacked list of teams that are now missing out of this week on EU. Now, included the teams that did qualify is actually Peterbot and Acorn, which is a very unlikely duo to form. Again, this is on EU. Don't panic, Pete Poyo fans. Pete and Poyo are still playing NA. They've already qualified before day 2 even started. But on EU, Pete decided to play with Acorn this week instead of playing with Rise, and they comfortably made the finals. They played phenomenal. Acorn put on an IGL masterclass, and yes, I know Peterbot's also the IGL, but if you watch the games, Acorn was leading all of their rotates. They played way more passively than obviously what Peterbot and Poyo normally would, because they're on high ping. You don't want to be keying on 150 ping, and they played really well. So I'm super excited to see how they're going to look in the finals, but we are missing a lot of our big teams, and I'm wondering if this is going to see a new snakening. Again, Chino split up with Frodoxy to go play with Veno. Yes, they did well once they made finals, but now both Frodoxy and Chino don't make finals. Frodoxy and Pablo, unfortunately, just not having the same success that Frodoxy and Chino were. But we'll have to see. No one said anything yet about splitting up or finding new teammates, except for Mongrel and Marco. Marco and Mongrel have officially split up. The first tournament they played together, vibes are amazing. Everything was looking good. Everything was happy. But unfortunately, they've gone downhill a little bit. If you watched any of Mongrel streams from this week's Div Cups, you saw it coming. That team was never going to last. And it means Mongrel is yet again looking for a new duo. And we are one step closer to Mr. Savage and Mongrel. I only say that because, again, in my most recent video, I talked about how Shark has said that he would play with Mr. Savage after deleting his Twitter column if him and Teeny didn't do well. Unfortunately for Savage and Savage fans, Teeny and Shark did very well. They have now qualified to the final, getting top 10 in the opens, but that doesn't mean they'll do well in the finals. Teeny and Shark, if they struggle in the finals, could still see Shark and Mr. Savage playing together next week. Mr. Savage wasn't able to play this week anyway. He has a charity football match on during finals, so he ended up playing with Julian Com. They didn't take it very seriously, so I wouldn't stress there. But there is still a chance of Savage and Shark, but him and Teeny are looking like they're doing pretty well. For those of you guys who like my videos breaking down who's dropping where in the finals and how finals is looking, don't worry, tomorrow after the Eval Cup, I will make another video talking about how the Storm Surge changes played out, how the Eval Cup played out, and I'll also look at the drop maps for EU and NA. Don't worry, I'm just making this video earlier so I can get the Storm Surge changes out because everyone's really confused.